Hello, welcome to This World. My name is Vikram, Chandra, and on this show we keep you posted on the week's biggest stories from around the world. This week, all eyes were on Ukraine once again. There were multiple significant developments and also an attack on a Russian border village. We'll bring you all the details on that in our cover story. Also on the show, we talk about the movement in the Pacific from the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's three-nation tour to NATO's office in Japan. The global order seems to be changing. We're also going to be bringing you details of a Mossad spy ring, or at least an alleged Mossad spy ring that Turkey claims to have busted. And all that's happened in the world of artificial intelligence, it's really been affecting the stock market, by the way. There was a stock market crash at the start of the week thanks to a fake image, and the week ended with a dramatic jump in AI stocks led by Nvidia after some really stunning results. But let's start off with our cover story and Ukraine. The tale starts with Russia saying that they've taken control over Bakhmut, Ukraine denying the same and saying that we are an inch close to Bakhmut. So what's exactly happened here? Moscow declared a triumphant victory in Bakhmut. This victory flashed with the state media extolling its liberation and President Vladimir Putin promising state rewards to those who distinguished themselves. However, this news was dismissed in Kiev. Officials insisted that the city was not completely under Russian control and saying that the battle was far from over. The commander of Ukraine's ground forces said, despite the fact we now control a small part of Bakhmut, the importance of its defense does not rule its relevance. These conflicting messages were indicating there are a number of things happening simultaneously. Following this, Russian troops and intelligence agents said a sabotage and reconnaissance group has crossed into Russia's Belgorod region. This very region that's been repeatedly shelled since the war broke out. The Russian army said they were seeking to eliminate a Ukrainian sabotage group that has crossed the Russian border. Now, this is apparently a group of anti-Putin Russian nationals who are aligned with the Ukrainian army. Meanwhile, at the G7 summit, there was a lot of discussion that took place about providing F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine, the very same fighter jets that are believed to fill Ukraine's defense needs. However, the looming question here was who would provide these jets to Ukraine, because one after the other, European countries denied that they would step forward, thus shifting the onus on the US, which, by the way, has already announced training programs for Ukrainian pilots. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky has assured the US President Joe Biden that the aircraft will not be used to get into Russian territory. The last we checked, the head of Russia's Wagner mercenary group announced that its forces have started withdrawing from the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, and with that, the transfer of control of the city to the Russian army is to be concluded by the 1st of June. But at the same time, Prigozhin, the Wagner army chief, has warned that Russians could revolt if the invasion continues to struggle. Now, why did he say that? Prigozhin's statement points to the social disparity underlined by the war, where he highlighted that the sons of the poor were being sent back from the front in zinc coffins, while the children of elite shook their asses in the sun. I'm sorry, I'm just quoting him. What do these developments mean for Russia now? Does this indicate any danger from Wagner for Putin? And where is this war headed? For more on that, let's talk to Joachim Bitterlich, who was the former German ambassador to NATO, and get some further insights. Thank you so much, Herr Bitterlich, for joining us. Just first of all, tell us what is happening in Bakhmut, because no one seems to know what's happening. It's a very confused picture out there. What can you tell us? What are you being able to pick up?
Well, we have one problem together, because we do not dispose of, let's say, an objective information. We get the information from both sides. I add to this some information from the Brits, who are in general in Europe the best informed, but I listen to the other side too. My impression is both sides are more or less exhausted through these infights in Bakhmut that has got, let's say, what I call an importance that it has not in reality. What I fear at the end of the day, it has not been, when I look at the Russian side, there is a certain destabilization of the Russian army, which is going on through Wagner. It's a risky competition when you look inside Russian politics. These ongoing competitions towards Putin and perhaps as potential successors to Putin.
All right, sir, if you had a crystal ball and I was to ask you to gaze into that and tell us where will we be 1 year from now, what would your answer be?
I would like to see them to end as soon as possible.
Right.
Because losses are too high for both sides. And I've still in mind what the Russians were agreeing, let's say, between the year 2010 and 2020. But the Russians have totally lost, let's say, this capability to be flexible and to be open. They are in their niche, in their corner. And the Ukrainians have gone more and more to their corner too. But I think the Americans will be at the end more helpful than it seems today. And some others from the third world, and I include here especially India, could be helpful there too.
All right, sir, thank you so much. We'll have to leave it there for the moment, but thank you so much. We'll all keep our eye, I guess, on Ukraine and what's happening there. This week saw various developments in the Pacific, from the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's three-nation visit to the security pact between the USA and Papua New Guinea, and finally, NATO's plan to open a liaison office in Tokyo. It was an insightful week into the future of the Indo-Pacific, a future which looks rather bright, by the way. And that is something which could actually irk China quite a lot. Now, earlier this week, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi commenced his three-nation tour. He went to Japan, and then Papua New Guinea, and finally to Australia. The aim of his visit was to strengthen the ties between these partner countries. In Papua New Guinea, the third Indo-Pacific Islands Cooperation Summit was held. It was the first time that an Indian Prime Minister visited this island nation. The visit laid down the foundations of the most significant bilateral partnership, I guess, in the context of the Indo-Pacific. Also this week, a security deal between the USA and Papua New Guinea was locked. The agreement would allow for bilateral and multilateral exercises between the countries. And additionally, they also signed a second agreement to counter threats like illegal fishing and drug trafficking, with Papua New Guinea able to participate in the US Coast Guard's Ship Rider program. As we speak, Australia is also seeking to negotiate its own bilateral security treaty with Papua New Guinea, clearly a country that was very much in the headlines this week. This week also saw Japan talking about opening a liaison office in Tokyo, the first of its kind in Asia. The station will allow the military alliance to conduct periodic consultations with Japan and key partners in the region such as South Korea, Australia and New Zealand. Will be able to talk as China emerges as a new challenge. All of these plans were confirmed by both Japanese and by NATO officials. You see, all of these are significant movements that are taking place in the Pacific Ocean story and in the Indo-Pacific story. All of these are steps that are being done to keep Chinese aggression at bay. And it is looking as if they are starting to have a major impact. So do keep your eyes on the Indo-Pacific. But for us in India, perhaps the most notable images of the week from the Indo-Pacific were these, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi landed in Papua New Guinea, and he was greeted by the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea in this very Indian style, bending to touch his feet in a gesture of respect. Those are images that really made headlines in India and across the world. And to talk a little bit more about that, there was an exclusive interview given by the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea to my colleague Siddhant from WION. Let's just listen in to what the Prime Minister had to say to him.
The protocol, which was essentially broken when you received the Indian Prime Minister at the airport, and that traditional welcome, it has been the biggest story in India and something that has been very viral as well. What is your thoughts about that essentially, and what is the idea behind it? I mean, to follow that Indian tradition?
Well, firstly, it's not an exclusive Indian tradition. We come from a Melanesian society where we welcome elders with respect and give them respect where it is deserved. This sort of welcome is not an ordinary welcome. It's not an everyday welcome to a guest or visitor. As I said, my own society here at Papua New Guinea has over 800 different languages. Inside, we have their own associated cultural practices. And in few of my cultures, it's an ancient culture where we do bestow that level of respect to important elders who do visit tribal land, who do visit our society. And for me, as Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, acknowledging that Prime Minister Modi is a senior person, Prime Minister Modi leads the biggest democracy by population in a top 5 economy. He could have completely ignored Papua New Guinea and Pacific and passed us by. For him to choose to spend almost a day with us here in Port Moresby, visiting Port Moresby, and to meet the Pacific Island leaders where I would be co-hosting that meeting with him, I felt it proper for me to receive him myself at the airport and give respect to a senior global statesman who was visiting Papua New Guinea for the first time.
And let's move now to Turkey, which recently busted what it called a Mossad espionage ring, and it detained 11 people. Mossad, of course, is Israel's national intelligence agency and the second largest espionage agency in the world by some accounts. Mossad work revolves around intelligence collection and covert operations, but there is a catch here. Unlike most security bodies, Mossad's objectives have not been defined in law. As for this particular case, the Turkish authorities suspected the ring was operating against Iranian targets. The investigation lasted for 18 months. Interestingly, this is not the first time that Turkey has exposed a Mossad spy ring. Rather, this is not the first time that they have claimed to do so. In December 2022, 7 individuals were arrested for spying on Palestinians. What for? For assisting Mossad in conducting online defamation campaigns. They were accused of making threats against Palestinians. In 2021, a Mossad network of 15 Arabs was reported to have been caught. Israel is yet to officially comment on this matter. Let's now talk to Colonel Rich Outzen, who's a geopolitical analyst and a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, who is there in Turkey. Colonel Outzen, always a pleasure to talk to you. Mossad agents in Turkey, spying networks, spy versus spy there in Istanbul. What do you make of all of this?
Well, in a sense, it's nothing new. If you are familiar with the James Bond movies, From Russia with Love was filmed in Istanbul. And the history of many different powers from back to World War I, even before that, spying on one another in Istanbul is sort of as natural as one might think for a city that's located at the confluence of 2 or 3 continents, if we're generous and think of Africa as well. Now, what's interesting here is the pace of activity has really picked up between Israelis and the Iranians with regards to making Turkey sort of a chessboard for espionage. Now, it's true that twice now within the last 2 years, not Israelis, but groups of Turkish citizens and third country nationals that were suspected of spying on behalf of Mossad, the Israeli Foreign Intelligence Agency, have been arrested. And it's also true that groups of Iranians, Revolutionary Guard connected Iranians that were rumored to be or suspected of planning assassinations of Israeli citizens in Turkey, in Istanbul specifically, have been arrested as well. So Türkiye, I think, has a very strong counterintelligence.
All right, Colonel Outzen, of course, accusations are going to fly on both sides. Anybody's guess whom you should believe. Now, there has been a peace process taking place in the Middle East, and then fresh violence, fresh escalations out there. How do you see this situation going? Do you think it's going to escalate any further?
I don't think so. I think in this region in particular, in the Middle East, people understand that espionage is simply part of the game. It's not exactly war, and it's not exactly peace. It's this battle in the shadows and in the gray zones, and they all do it. All the large countries of the Middle East have external espionage operations or information gathering operations. I think there are certain written rules of the road. Now, I'm actually more concerned about the content of the Iranian efforts because they were actually talking about assassinating Israeli citizens or Turkish Jewish citizens on Turkish soil. That's a very major violation of national sovereignty. What the Mossad ring that is reputed to have been apprehended was accused of doing was conducting espionage on an Iranian company that was doing business in Turkey, probably with an eye to connections with Iranian intelligence or perhaps with regards to other activities directed against Jewish and Israeli people, or sanctions busting, right? Because Iran is under major programs of sanctions. So that sort of corporate or security espionage, I think when these sort of arrests are made and people are extradited or punished, it does not disrupt the major state-to-state relations. I would be more worried if there had been a successful assassination, for instance, in the Iranian case, because that goes beyond the bounds of normal espionage.
Colonel Richardson, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us with that very valuable perspective. All right, now, week after week on This World, we have been bringing you up to date with the latest developments on AI or artificial intelligence. Now, this week, AI moved the stock markets for reasons both good and bad. On the bad side, there was a fake AI image of an explosion at the Pentagon that took the world by storm, and it actually crashed the stock markets until people realized it was a fake, and then the stock markets came back up. And on the positive side, there was one of the biggest single-day rises in any company's market cap ever in history. NVIDIA, their stock price shot up by some 25%, and their market cap rose by $200 billion, all in a single day. Why? Because NVIDIA said that AI is really transforming our business, and our revenue is going to grow up far more than we had ever thought it would do. So, AI making an impact on the stock markets as well. Our next story brings you some more details.
This week, the world witnessed the good and the bad that AI has to offer. One fake AI image went viral on the internet. The image showed an explosion near the Pentagon. The image was tweeted from a verified Twitter account. News outlets broke the news. Stock markets started plummeting. People across the globe feared an attack. Soon, experts highlighted that the image had an involvement of AI-generated content, and that this image was a part of what is known as deepfakes. Now, just as we wrapped our heads around what happened with these fake images, another news from the world of AI flashed. And what did it say? NVIDIA is close to becoming first trillion-dollar chip firm. What is NVIDIA? It is an American multinational technology company, and it specializes in artificial intelligence computing. And this company just witnessed a $200 billion jump in its market cap. These are jaw-dropping numbers, and with this spike in numbers, NVIDIA is on its way to become the first chipmaker to be valued at more than $1 trillion, all because of the booming demand for its artificial intelligence processors. It has just created history in the world of stock market. You see, that's the impact of AI. It is quick, but it has good potential to change our future. It has pros, but also cons.
And for more on that, let's now get in Dr. Marcelo Yanka, who's the Professor of Ethics of Artificial Intelligence and Neuroscience at the Technology University at München. Thank you so much, Dr. Yanka, for joining us. Been a fascinating week for AI. We saw that big jump in the NVIDIA stock, which sort of shows you what the power of AI. But the fact that a fake image of an explosion can send the stock market crashing underlines the risks that we're going to be facing. How are we going to deal with being able to tell what's real and what's fake?
Well, thanks for having me. Yes, indeed. AI is here to challenge our understanding of reality. And I think it's time that we no longer think that reality is what we think it is, because this image that briefly circulated on Twitter also influenced investor behavior. And the challenge for us as a society is, first of all, how can we develop tools to detect AI fakes more promptly? Second, what responsibilities social media platforms need to take for fake content that is spread through their platforms?
I would have said that the answer to that may well lie a lot in making sure that it's coming from reputable or sources. So media houses, people who know what they are doing. That's what you should start to trust. It doesn't help that Twitter has changed the entire policy on takes, because this seemed to have come from a blue-ticked account. So people, I guess, got confused. Big media houses picked it up as well, of course, this fake news.
Well, yes, but the blue mark on Twitter is now something that you can purchase for little money.
Yeah.
So it's no longer quite valid sign of authentication and quality and veracity of the information. But taking Twitter aside, this could have happened on any other platform. So you can pretend to be a reliable source and spread fake information. And therefore, I think we certainly need to develop better accountability tools for these platforms, better even AI-based tools to detect AI-based or AI-generated content. But ultimately, we need to foster digital literacy and critical thinking in the population. Because as Voltaire famously said, those who make you believe in absurdities can make you commit injustices.
Wow, that's a fantastic line to end this show on. Dr. Yanka, thank you so much for joining us. I suspect this is a theme we'll be talking to you about at great length in the days and months ahead. Digital literacy, I guess, is going to take time to come, but let's hope it comes at some point. Thank you so much, Dr. Yanka, for joining us. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you very much. The pleasure was mine.
Thank you so much. Well, I guess all we can say is that till that digital literacy comes, do pay attention to everything that you're seeing and trust the source. Watch the right people, watch the right sources. Make sure that what you're watching is correct and not fake. What you're reacting to is correct, not fake. I guess that's perhaps the best time to put in a quick plug. Keep watching This World, and we'll try and make sure that nothing that we are showing you is actually wrong. But hey, AI is advancing so fast, everyone can be fooled. Perhaps everyone will be fooled at some point. That's it for now. We'll be back next week with a fresh lineup of big stories. My name is Vikram Chandra, and you're watching This World on WION. World is One.